What is your name?
Yvette Edwards.
Which neighborhood do you reside in?
Um, Bronzeville, south side of Chicago.
How long have you lived in Chicago?
All my life, 54 years, 55 years.
What role do you play in your community?
Um, just trying to be, I play the role of a good neighbor and a good, just a good citizen or constituent. I don't do m- much volunteering anymore like I used to because my time doesn't allow me to. But at one point, I was volunteering at the churches and at the schools, the grammar schools that my children attended, and also the high school sometimes.
What is your definition of community?
The area that you live in for, I'll say maybe 30 block radius.
Okay. Um, how have you been impacted by your community? And how would your life be different if you lived in a different city or town?
Um, I think it might be initially a little lonely at first because my family is here. That's one of the reasons that I've never moved. Although I believe I'm a person that adapts to change fairly easily. I've never had the desire to leave the city that I live in, Chicago.
How have you been impacted by your community?
I've been impacted both negative and positive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the negative part it would be the crime, so much crime that's around. But I've always been fortunate enough if I've lived in so-called bad areas, I've I've never been attacked. My apartment has never been burglarized. Um, so that's always been a good thing. And where I live now, I like the area. I'm about 10 minutes away from downtown. I'm maybe 10 minutes from downtown on the bus. I could walk downtown because I'm near the South Loop. Uh, I like the fact that I'm a few minutes away from the beach. I can cut through McCormick Place. I'm right on the bus line. When I first moved over here, I've been in the same apartment for 13 years. And when I first moved over here, there were two hospitals that were available to me within walking distance and one clinic or two clinics. And you had the police station down the street from me. I was only 20 blocks away from my family. There were, the grammar school was down the street from me that my children attended within walking distance, so that saved money. My daughter was 10 blocks away from the high school she attended, as well as my son and the other daughter. So I liked it because everything was close by, a good connection. I'm right off the main bus line. I don't drive. And then the area was quiet, and then I had being near my family. That was a good thing. Now, what I don't like so much about now is that management where I stay. It's not. They could do better, but overall, I'm not moving like I say because I have all those pluses. I'm near my family, and right now my mother's up in age, and I'm not too far from her. I'm 10 minutes away on the bus. So, but yeah, that's just a few ways negative that I was impacted the fact that they don't do as much as they used to management here. But overall, I like the neighborhood. I have a park right down the street, 2 blocks away. The gym that I attend is about 10 blocks away, north and south of me.
Mm-hmm.
So I really enjoy it. It's relatively quiet. I have I would say my neighbors, my immediate neighbors are all nice. We get along and we look out for each other. So that's a good thing. It's always good to have, when you move into a neighborhood, you have good resources, meaning good schools, good public transportation, the other facilities that you may need, like the police department, things like that. So, but yeah, I think it's a pretty good neighborhood. It's starting to become a little more congested. That's one thing I don't like about it, because they've just built maybe two new hotels near me.
Mm-hmm.
So, but overall, I think it's a good neighborhood.
How do you think your community is viewed by others?
Well, slowly but surely, it's becoming an area where people would like to live. And that's not a bad thing, that's a good thing. But the downside to that is, like I say, with them building, they just built 2 new hotels. So that caused my rent to be increased. So, but I think it's a good it's good when you have people wanting to come, and there's nothing wrong with that, adding more people to, as long as we can live, and pretty much in harmony together with
Mm-hmm.
each other.
Okay. If you think this view is wrong or fair, is there a way to change how your community is viewed by others?
Yeah, I think it is, and it has mostly to do with, I think with maybe media, whether it's social media, negative things being posted, whether it's on the television. I think that plays a part, because people are so quick to just assume that because you live in this certain area, it used to be a certain way, they think that it's still that way. Like where I am now, this area was consumed with projects.
Mm-hmm.
So when they started tearing down the projects and trying to rebuild the community, people still had the idea, and when I say people, it might be, I'm referring more or less to cab drivers, trying to get a cab or trying to get, when I first moved over here, food delivered over here. People were just concerned because we were, quote unquote, on the low end, what they call the low end, and people knew that the projects were over here at one time. But like I say, it's a great neighborhood, and if people were to just come take a look, but you notice it in passing, or at the bus stop, or sometimes some people might come by and it's like, oh, this is really nice. I didn't know it had changed like this. So sometimes you just have to step outside your comfort zone and just take a look around.
Mm-hmm.
Hop on that bus, get in your car, just drive around and come and look for yourself.
Okay. All cities have to deal with issues like violence. How does the issue of violence in Chicago compare to other major cities?
Well, I think it might be pretty much the same, but I think we were ranked number 1 at one point when it came to murders, but I haven't looked at the statistics for like New York and other big cities like that. But I did read just a little while ago that we were down, I forget what percentage, but we were down, murders were down maybe about 200, 100 since last year.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think we still might be number one when it comes to crime.
What are the top 3 issues, concerns that you would like to address and start a dialogue with your community? Your community could be your peers, your neighborhood, Chicago, etc.
Okay. One thing I would like to address is the upkeep of the property.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it starts with the individual that lives on that property, meaning picking up the trash, make sure when you take the garbage out, that is tied and is put in the dumpster and the lid is closed. Or if you don't dump the trash out of your car, that would be my immediate community. The next level would be it's voting time now, so a lot of I haven't seen any over here in my my area, in my ward, but I was over in my mother's on her block, and one of the alder persons was out trying to solicit votes, shaking hands, knocking on doors, things like that. But I think I would speak to my alder person in regards to, and I did over the summer and it helped. I didn't actually speak to them, I called the city in regards to the rat population or the vacant lot where trash was being dumped. But I guess several other people ended up complaining about it because the lot was cleared. But once the lot was cleared, then we started seeing more rodents looking for a place to come. But I think the city needs to just come out a little bit more and clean not just the city, but the city and the people that live in those areas, come out and clean the vacant lots a little bit more. Just be accountable of your area and your space. Another thing that I may have an issue with or a problem with is this paid for parking, but I know it's nothing that can be done right about now because this is a contract that was signed for about 75 years. So I guess we got maybe another 60 years before the contract can be up. I don't know if what they could do about it, but I think that's unfair to have to pay. And I guess because I'm not used to paying, I don't drive, but as a kid, I know we would drive to the beach, park the car, and just could be out there all day. Now you have to feed the meter every 3 hours, just different things like that where I think it might be a little bit unfair for residents here in the city.
Okay. If you were in charge of the media, what would you show? What would you do to change the perception of how people view you and your community?
I would probably broadcast more of the positive instead of the negative. The positive issues like some of the children that would volunteer at the church over here, the high school students that would volunteer and were going to going to the seniors building, packing up food and taking food and just having 5-minute conversations with them. You don't see or hear about those positive things like that. Positive things where I've had my own friends to New Year's Day, just gather up some food and go over here right off the expressway near downtown, near Roosevelt, to Tent City, and just pass out like chili and hot dogs to the people in that tent. Those things you don't see on the news a whole lot. Or like people just out in the park, 300-500 people out just dancing and having a good time once a year, world's largest picnic. No fighting, no nothing. Everybody just getting along, and this time out the year just celebrating. And just like I say, just broadcast those positive issues. Or like when you hear about people, they always say most of the time black people don't want to do anything. Black young men, they're just, all they want to do is stand on the corner and sell drugs. I think I will put on the news the LINK program that offers 4-year scholarships to people wanting to attend private and Catholic high schools. Things like that, more positive things like that. When you see some just random acts of kindness, focus more on that. And I think if people saw more of those positive things, it would change the whole outlook on Chicago, especially the South Side and the inner city.
Mm-hmm. How do you see Chicago in the future?
I still see it as being one of the great cities. I think it's a great city. I do. And I guess that's because, we have our negative parts, and some things have changed for the worse. But overall, I think it's not a bad place. Mm. If we were able to offer a little bit more of an outlet or more jobs for younger people meaning like people in high school, right out of high school, decent jobs and more wages, higher minimum wage, that would help a whole lot. Mm-hmm. If we had a few more centers or places where people could go to do certain things. But I know people aren't as active as they used to be. People meaning younger kids. I know when I grew up, you had skating rinks in every neighborhood. You had theaters in every neighborhood. So, and then the schools were always trying to do a little bit something, whether it was host different fundraisers or have just different after-school activities.
How do you propose that we can, try to implement that more into the community?
I'm really don't know, other than maybe the city's always telling me we don't have any money for this, money for that. But one thing, I think it was maybe 4 years ago, a new center facility was built over here at 35th or 34th and Cottage Grove. Mm-hmm. Beautiful place. And they have a nice swimming pool, and I see the children in there when I pass by there. And then they have built a couple of more restaurants which offer jobs to the younger children in the community. But like I say, maybe if we could get a few more places where they could socialize if they wanted to, and like the skating rink or just different things. I guess kids are more into social media and technology things, but maybe we could have a center like that where they could teach certain things, like how to film. Those who may be interested in different technologies or broadcasting or certain things, just have a center for that. Just start you off with the basics, Okay.
It is important for us to keep keep an ongoing dialogue of the most important issues facing our community. Are there any other questions that I did not ask you that you feel I should ask you in your community? We like to use your questions in our next interviews.
No, not offhand. I think you were pretty direct.
Okay. Any additional notes or comments about this process, i.e. your work experience? What can we do to improve this process with future interviewees? What was successful, what needs work?
What was successful?
Yeah. Do you have any additional questions, comments about this process? Yeah.
Yours? No.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great day. Thank you.